Yeah, especially if they're not parents. Yeah.
The RSV.
For the children, especially.
Yeah, that is.
One of my colleagues, her daughter had RSV, and it was really bad.
And we are on it.
We're live? Okay.
Hello.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Children's Services Leon Executive Committee meeting. The time is now 5:01 p.m. and it is Wednesday, December the 7th. I am calling this meeting to order. Ms. Clay, will you please take roll call for us?
Mr. Watts,
Here.
Mr. Mitchell,
Here.
Dr. Glenn.
Present? All right, sounds good. Thank you very much. All right, it is now time for our general public comment. I don't see any general public here, but are there any statements that you need to read, Ms. Clay?
We have no public comment.
All right, we're good. All right, thank you so very much. All right, our first major agenda item, we need to approve the agenda. I apologize, I skipped straight over that. All right, we need to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second? All right, we have a motion, we have an approval. Does both of you agree? I'm assuming it's both of you. Great. All right, so the agenda is approved. All right, thank you very much. We do not have any general public comment. So now it's time for us to have the final trim hearing and update budget review. I'm going to turn it over to the screen.
Yes, so thank you so much for allowing me to be here because normally I would not be at this meeting because of the purpose of the meeting. So on November 29th, I received an email from the Department of Revenue saying that our trim was not done correctly. In that correspondence, they sent the whole correspondence and they also FedExed it. So it is here if you would like to look, and I can leave it here and I can just pick it up later. But it just lays out how our trim ad in our budget was in violation of the statute. I did get a chance to speak with Chair Glenn when it happened and Treasurer Mitchell when it happened. I also had a chance to speak with Wyatt Peters, who is with DOR and handles the trim process. Basically, when trim was done the very first time, it was done off of June projections and not July 1 projections. Small wonder, because it was the first time that it had been done. And we were trying to stay consistent with that. And that's what we did. Well, that wasn't what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to use the July 1 projections. And our ad was supposed to reflect all of that. When I went through, and they actually tell you what was wrong with the ad and they tell you how to correct it. When we went through, we realized that we had inverted the numbers that we should have taken from our documents that are submitted through the portal. And so after speaking with Wyatt Peters, he literally sent me documents correcting every line of the ad and every line of the budget. So we have done those corrections. I did not bring printed copies, but I do have it here, and we will have copies for our next trim hearing because we do have to redo the final hearing and we have to re-advertise it in the paper. So we have contacted the paper. It will re-advertise on Monday, December 12th. And in accordance with the statute and the rules, we will have the hearing immediately after council meeting on that Thursday, which is the 15th. So our council meeting is scheduled from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We will have trim meeting at 6:05.
Okay, so it's after the meeting, not before.
Not before.
All right.
The reason being that the meeting must be at 5:01 or later or on a Saturday.
Okay.
We thought it best not to plan it for a Saturday. So since we will have the entire council, we will do that at 6:05 on Thursday, December 15th. It will be noticed as in accordance with our bylaws and with the statute. We will post the resolutions. One will be to adopt the final millage. The other will be to adopt the final budget. And once it is approved, we resubmit it back to the trim department of the Department of Revenue, and then we will also send it to the tax collector's office. In accordance with the information that we sent, the tax collector's office also sent us the exact same information, noting the same mistakes. And what we now know is that we can prepare that, and send it to DOR for them to look at, make sure that it is correct, and then send it back to us before we publish it. There was, I believe when I spoke with Treasurer Mitchell, he wanted to know what the difference in the amounts were. It was $6,000 difference in the amount that we used to budget versus what we should have used to budget.
Okay.
In our operating budget, it is not substantive, but I do want to bring to your attention that that in our budget, we made sure, here we go, this touch screen. We made sure that I think I can do it this way. Hi, there we go. We made sure that we put the millage rate in the budget as is required. We had it in the budget, but it was in the notes, so when we hit that column, we hit it and nobody caught it. So we put that in there. The difference is that we are at 7.639 million. Our original one was 7.1, I think it was, because it ended up being about $6,000. The other thing we discovered is that we were putting way too much detail in our budget.
Wait, see,
Yeah. Yes.
$6,000 it wouldn't be 7.6 versus 7.1, that's $500,000.
No.
It would be 7.639 versus seven.
7.631.
Okay, yes, yes, okay,
Or
fair,
32.
whatever. Okay.
I said it wrong.
Yeah, I'm like, wait,
No.
anyone listening, we know how to do math.
It wasn't hundreds of thousands, it was
Yeah.
actually $6,790.
Yeah, it's the projection difference between
Right.
June when the tax assessment was done in July, which I knew was going to be a significant amount, which is why I asked the question. Before you go on, I just want to make sure, Mr. Rowe, December 12th advertisement for a December 15th hearing on taxes, does that meet the requirement, 3 days?
I believe that the notice for this particular meeting has to be no less than 3, no more than 5 days.
There you go.
It's in close proximity.
Okay.
And I believe Sika has checked with Wyatt and he has confirmed our plan for correcting this.
And December 12th and December 15th are
We are good.
good.
Do we, are there any penalties as a result of the delay? Nothing, okay, all right.
You have 15 days to cure. Now, if we had not cured in 15 days, or if we felt like they noted us as being in violation and we felt like that wasn't the case, there are appeal processes, but they show you exactly where you messed up. So we had no ground
Okay.
to say, no, we did it. And the 15 days gave us plenty of time to check with the Tallahassee Democrat, make sure that it could publish on the 12th, just make sure we had everything in place so that it wouldn't impact the actual distribution of the taxes. As you're aware, taxes start being paid, I think some can start being paid as early as October, but November and December are those big months. And then January, and then it starts trickling in after that. So we are not in danger of any of that. So we also discovered that our budget was way too detailed. We were giving them our operating budget, and if you remember, we had done our operating budget so that we could show that the 2 years of rent that the council approved to be put away, we were showing that it would be paid, the first year would be paid in this fiscal year, and we would have a balance left over of the 74,000 for next fiscal year. That was a no-no. So the way that it's now indicated, everything that is revenue, it shows revenue, reserves, and we had to relabel everything. You can tell I.
It's not a no-no, in fairness, it's not a no-no that we're doing it, we just don't need to report it.
Exactly.
Right, I just, again, for anybody listening, for the one soul out there who might be, I just want to make sure the council did not violate any of the laws, we certainly,
Didn't violate any accounting laws,
nothing.
didn't hide any money or not report any money. So we're now reporting it as revenues, reserves, and balances. And so the balances is what takes care of that. that money. And then we'll go down and we want to make sure that it balances equally and we show no balance. And so if you look here, we are at total revenues of $12,588,227.12. And when we look at all of our expenditures that we are projecting, reserves, comp and employee benefits, contract services, our operations, and most importantly, our program investments, we balance exactly at $12,588,227.12.
Has the revised already been submitted back to DOR?
It will not be submitted until the council approves it by
Gotcha.
resolution.
Okay,
And then we will resubmit proof of the ad as well as proof of publishing the budget. We will resubmit the budget to the county tax collector's office.
And just to prevent this from happening again, and I know that this was a learning process for everybody, is the procedure now that we will prepare the trim and submit it to DOR for review and then do a final submission? Okay.
Yes, after talk, so this happened while we were at our CSC retreat, and so I got a chance to talk to other EDs. Oh, yes, Zika, we all learned our lesson, and then when I talked with Wyatt, he said, now, you know, you can send it to us, and we'll make sure it's correct before you publish it. So I wanted to come to the executive committee to present this so that you would know, now that we've presented it to the executive committee, I will be sending emails out to the entire council to let them know that it was on the executive committee budget and ensure that everyone can stay at least until 6:15
Okay,
so that we can get this approved.
okay, next meeting, perfect. Thank you very much.
If you have any questions, please let me know. If you'd like me to leave this and you want to peruse this, I can do that. Chris, you can grab it
Okay,
and then we'll get that back. And that is my presentation.
thank you.
And I apologize for the
No, it's okay,
inconvenience,
no, I
but
totally
I
understand.
feel like I'm a master at it.
Sure.
So we'll be good.
Any questions from Ms. Green with regards to the trim and the revisions? No?
Okay.
We did hear from our companion, CSC, Escambia,
Okay.
who started at the same time we did, we had an exact same issue.
Oh, okay.
Almost the exact same issue, and they had to.
We did this, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, we appreciate
And with
that.
that, I'm gonna make my exit and thank you guys so much.
Thank
See
you.
you
Thank you,
soon.
thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
And
No,
for taking
thank you
care of
guys.
that, sure.
I
Thank
think
you.
this is all I have. Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is
Bye-bye.
great. We appreciate you. Okay, thank you. All right, we are going to move on to our next agenda item number 6, is a review of the executive director's performance evaluation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our general counsel, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee members, I have here the entire set of performance evaluations that were submitted by each council member. I appreciate that presenting them to you now doesn't really give you a lot of time to review. It would have been nice to have them in advance. Of course, staff typically prepares agenda packages with materials for the upcoming meeting and submits them in advance, so you have the opportunity to review them. I didn't want to do that here because I didn't want to cause a violation of the Sunshine Law. You will recall that I have advised the board on occasion that if one board member were to confer with another board member through written communication or anything else about forthcoming business before the council, outside the context of a duly noticed public meeting, that's a violation of the Sunshine Law. And it occurred to me that as I started pulling these together and I got ready to hit send and send them to each of you, that doing that may have caused a violation of the Sunshine Law. So what I've done instead is I brought them all with me, prepared to go over them with you, take as much time as you need to review them. In order to facilitate your review and make it perhaps more efficient, I prepared a summary or a tabulation of all the scores, how each person voted, what the average of the scores were. Again, so as to hopefully remove some of the inconvenience of you not being able to see the evaluations in advance. Did that so we basically conform with the Sunshine Law. And on that note, I'll go ahead and share first tabulation. This is for all 10 of the performance evaluations that were submitted. The second and following pages are the comments that each board member made. And then in addition to this summary, I have the actual evaluation instruments.
comments, Debbie? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you for putting all of this together for us. I do realize that she does not have any twos or any ones, so I'm very pleased to see that, and folks still provided comments. We did have a three, we have two threes. And I would expect in the financial area, because you work very closely in that area, Paul, so I'm sure our council member Mitchell, that you are closer to, some of the activities there. And I see that Ms. McFadden also had 1-3. Any comments from either of you overall? Do you all have any feedback or general comments or any general disagreement with what you're seeing from the majority of what the council members have evaluated her with?
I don't think I have any comments.
No comments? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the only, here's what I'd say is what is reflected here is pretty consistent.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I focused in on Ms. McFadden's comments because specifically as it relates to the financial record management. I wouldn't, I sat there and I was like, I actually believe that in constructive guidance for people, and that there's always room for improvement, and this is definitely a weakness. I mean, and not a needs improvement, but a needs extra focus. And I shared with Sika when we were talking about the trim notice. I said, hey, for 3 months now, I've asked for a meeting with the accountant. And for 3 months, I've gotten, oh, he's on family vacation. I'm like, well, 3 months. I don't feel comfortable coming to the council and saying, hey, I've checked the entire budget. Everything is checking out just fine, when I haven't seen it. And so that is why I have a 3. I think Sika is amazing. I think she does a great job. She's an amazing voice and presence for this council in this community, and I'm glad she's our executive director. This is an area that I think warrants more attention being paid to it, but I did not put it in the needs improvement category because I don't think she's failing in it. But it is one that I think demands more focus.
So what I'm hearing from you, it's not an area of negligence.
No.
It's just an area of growth, an area where she can.
I'm always quick, like twice today, to say, for the record, what we are saying here is because I say things intentionally, and I think before I'm going to say them when it's on public record, and I want the public to feel confident that I am not concerned at all about the financials of the Children's Services Council. But I would like more focus paid on the financials, and specifically as it relates to how we spend money, other people's money. That is something that I will always beat the drum on, and that is why
That's totally understandable.
everything else of mine were 4s or 5s, and I think she does a great job.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that comment. All right, thank you very much. So I just wanted to get an understanding from you. I think we're all comfortable with the evaluations here. I don't see any major red flags at all. And I agree, that there is an area where she can show a little bit of growth. And I think that's reflected in the evaluations. Please walk us through the next steps so we can make sure we're following everything appropriately.
Part of the purpose of the evaluation process is tied to her compensation.
Right.
Her contract with the CSC provides that depending on the results of her evaluations, she may qualify for a $5,000 merit increase in her salary, effective with the start of her second full year. So it's up to the full council, but earlier this committee, to make a recommendation to the council as to whether or not you feel that the results of the performance evaluations support that $5,000 increase, which was in fact built into our contract.
So, if I remember correctly, Mr. Mitchell, when she came on the first time, and I think it was advertised at one particular rate, one of the council members suggested, I think it was at $5,000 below that. And I do believe that we said, based on her performance, she would be eligible for the difference at the end. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, almost correctly.
Okay.
It was advertised at 120,000, which is what we hired her at. It was one of the members of the council recommended 125 because when Ms. Green was hired, on her application, she was earning, I think, either 110 or 112 something at the Children's Home Society.
Okay.
That's what reflected on her application. By the time we went through the interview process, based on her comments at the meeting, she basically said, no, she'd already gotten an increase to 115, I think. So somebody threw out, I want to say it was either School Board Member Jones or maybe Commissioner Cummings, I can't remember,
Okay.
but threw out 125. And it was like, well, the job was advertised at 120. So so I think it was maybe Mark O'Brien who threw in the idea of well, how about, we go a year, we'll do an assessment. If you also remember, I built in something that wasn't built into the original compensation, and that was her benefits package, that it would be tied directly to a state employee with a comparable retirement package, which put it well above what we originally had advertised for. So that's kind of the full picture.
So I thought I remembered something different, but I wasn't on the committee, so I just want to be honest, and I apologize for turning my back to you. So what I thought I remembered was that it was advertised at 125, and that a council member suggested that because the school superintendent's salary was at 120, we should cap her at 120, which took her lower than the advertised price.
You're almost right there.
Okay.
Here's what happened. It was School Board Member Jones who said, I do not want, this is before it was Ms. Green. This is
Okay,
when it was
yeah,
just being
just Cameron,
advertised. And threw out the 120.
Okay.
So we voted on the 120 as
As
the
the
salary.
advertised price, okay.
That's
Okay.
why, that's how this all kind of
Okay.
got.
Changed,
Yes.
okay, all right. Okay, thank you for that, because all right, so,
Question.
yes, please.
And Mr. Rowe, is it a number between 0 and 5,000, or is it just the 5,000? That I could not remember.
Yes is the answer. It could be anything.
Okay.
It's-
By
Up to-
less than 5,000 is the way the contract is worded.
It's
Green's salary will be increased by not less than $5,000 to take effect upon commencement of the next renewal term or extension of her current term.
So it's a minimum $5,000, okay, so that answers your question, yeah.
I thought it was between 0 and 5.
That provision in the contract is different than what was discussed at that meeting. I'm just telling you, I led the discussion. I mean, I remember it very well, but it doesn't really matter. It's really, and what I found is we as an executive committee can certainly make a recommendation. I think when it comes to this issue, I think the board's gonna go the direction they want to go. So I always feel sort of silly in this regard, even making a recommendation, because,
Yeah,
you know,
well, I feel as if I'm sorry, you about to say something?
Well, can I just do a follow-up?
Sure, please.
So is the recommendation, why do we have to then recommend, can we just recommend bringing it to the board to make a decision as a whole? Or why do we have to say yay or nay?
well, I'm happy to, to me, here's what I think. I think that this has been a very good year. I think that the council has been served very well by Ms. Green. I look at what
I look what others in comparable positions are earning, and she's well compensated. My vote will be to leave her exactly as she is, not because I don't think she's doing a great job, because my scores would indicate differently. But I just think that we are in that my vote will be to leave her compensation exactly as it is, including the beef up of her retirement and her health plan that was part of my motion at the meeting we hired her at.
And the beef up is based on her evaluation?
No, it was based
That's
on
just-
how we hired her.
Okay.
I just thought we should treat her like a state agency head. And that is, I will just say that, you know, if you again, comparable positions, the Early Learning Coalition of the Big Bend serves a very large area, obviously very busy, doesn't make what she makes. And that's a comparable to me. And I just think that $120,000 a year is a good place. Now, I will say that if Sika continues on the path that she's on, I will be the strongest advocate for a pay increase next year. I really will.
But why next year and not this year?
Because I just think that I think that the package that she receives now was perhaps overly generous in the first year. So that's
Okay, I hear. So I'd love to hear your opinion too. I want to go back to the contract, because if the contract says not a minimum, that we can't do less than $5,000, right? Is that what it says? I mean, I just want to be clear as to what the contract says.
The contract here. I have
Yeah,
extra
please. Oh,
copies.
thank you.
Right,
That'd be
extra
great.
copies. It's
Thank you.
section 9B on the second page.
So it's dictated to us that we have to give her a pay increase?
Yes.
See, that's what I'm thinking. Ms.
Okay.
Green's salary will be increased by not less than $5,000 to take effect upon commencement of her next renewal. See, and
If based upon its evaluation, the performance during the year and other, Green salary will be increased by not less than 5,000. If we're going to give an increase, it has to go up no less than 5,000, but we do not have to give an increase.
okay, and I'm not opposed to giving her an increase. I'm not. I honestly believe the first year is the hardest year. And I think she performed well. And I don't think I'm the only one that thinks she performed well, because I think the evaluations show that her performance was good. And that's why I really wish we could go back to the notes, because I thought that it was advertised at 125 and we bumped her down to 120. I thought we did. And because I remember her comment, I remember looking at her face, and she said, I think you all will realize that I'm worth the 125.
You're absolutely right. Here's the difference. When the job was advertised, it was advertised again up to 125 until that was before Mr. Jones joined the board.
Okay.
And Mr. Jones joined the board and took exception to that and said, I do not want them making more than 120,000, and made a comment regarding the superintendent's salary. That's when the board voted that it would be 120. So that's the difference. The advertisement didn't say the job will pay 125. It said up to 125.
Okay,
It was the board's vote that made it 120.
okay.
And I add to that is, because when we left that meeting, there was no agreement and they negotiated. And I think factoring in the dollar amount of the being in, right, the benefits pretty much put over far and above, what that 125 would have been. And I think that's where we're landed, like with the 120, because we're gonna be in that FRS, Florida Retirement Benefits System.
Right.
But I really did think that it was from 0 we had
A range.
a range.
Yeah.
So did but
Okay, it doesn't.
again, I mean,
Okay,
there is not a requirement that, there's not a requirement that we give her a pay increase. That I have to say, I was like, I led that discussion. I certainly would have remembered, that doesn't mean that the contract wouldn't reflect that, but the discussion definitely didn't reflect that. What surprises me, and we could go back and look at the notes, again, a contract is a contract is a contract. We all approved it, so I'll live by what the contract says. But Mr. Watts, your memory and my memory are the same in that I remember it being up to $5,000. It wasn't a minimum of 5,000, but what's in the contract is what we have to live by.
Yes, and the contract says, and I'm sitting here reading this as you go through, it says, the council believes Ms. Green has met the council's performance expectations as executive director. Green's salary will be increased by not less than $5,000 to take effect upon commencement of the next renewal term of the extension of her current terms, but not earlier than 1 year. I mean, my understanding, I'm no attorney, but my understanding is if she meets the performance expectations, we owe her $5,000 on her salary. Is that your understanding? I mean, because that's what I'm reading. And I'm looking at these, and these say to me she's met the expectations.
The council shall pay an annualized fee if based upon its evaluations of Green's performance undertaken, the performance of the council and such factors and conditions as the council deem relevant, the council believes Green has met the council's. So there, if you take out the beginning part of it, I agree with you. Again, like I said, this is, to me,
What about the beginning doesn't work for you?
the council deems relevant, other factors and conditions as the council deems
And
relevant.
these are the factors and conditions we deemed relevant, right? When we did her performance matrix, we thought those were the factors and conditions that were relevant to her performance.
Sandra, here's my thought, and this is why I said we have one council member who gave her all fives.
Right.
I am not crazy enough to believe that, and that's why I'm like, I'm happy to speak my mind, and my mind, I believe, is probably going to be different than the majority. And therefore, that's why I said, I don't think, like, a recommendation from us is, we can make the recommendation, you know, and, but I think all 10 members are gonna, and I don't think they're gonna, like, they may think all 3 of us are just wonderful people, but they are all gonna have their
Their
own
own opinion.
opinion.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of a recommendation is, you know, you vote your conscience. And that would be, that's my recommendation.
And that's fine, and I'm completely fine with that. I just want to make sure we explain to them, that's why I want an understanding of what's in her contract.
Right.
Because I think we need to be clear to them, the contract says this is where we landed, this is what we said, now let's vote. But I don't think it would be right for us to not make that clear. That's why I want to make sure I understand this before we go back to the council.
Yeah, I would say this, again, the language in the contract, putting it aside is to your interpretation of it. If you go and you listen to that meeting,
Yeah.
there is no one who can come away from that meeting thinking that no matter what, at a minimum, Sika, if she just meets the level of performance, and actually, Mr. Watts, I remember you at that meeting, that's where you talked about, it's important that we lay out what the expectations are, that she would automatically get an increase of no less than $5,000.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree. I don't think it should be automatic. I think it should be based on her performance. That's why I'm looking at this, because I don't think we owe her anything if she had not performed. And that's why I was really interested in seeing this And if everybody felt as if she met the performance, there were no ones, there were no twos. In my mind, she met the performance of our expectations of her. Yes, there are areas of growth, but she met the level of performance she deserves. So, I live in analogies, you may have a kid who is in a class, and there are areas where they could grow, but if they meet the standards of passing that class, they pass and they go to the next grade. So just because, if she met the criteria, I think we owe it to her if that's what's written here in the contract. That's all I'm saying.
I asked Mr. Rose, is it definitive that that's what that is saying? Like there's.
To Councilmember Mitchell's point, the intro gives some flexibility to the full council to decide whether or not it should be at 5,000.
Okay.
That said, the increase is premised on whether or not the council considers her performance expectations to have been met. The evaluations were based on a 5-point scale. 1 is below expectations. 5 is exceeds expectations. 3, the middle, would be about met expectations. If you look at her averages here, she averages close to 5, which is clearly exceeding expectations. I suggest it would be difficult to mount a case that says she did not meet expectations when she's close to 5 and all her averages, which is exceeds expectations. It would be difficult to say, well, all things considered, we don't think she's met expectations for purposes of compensation when her averages are so close to exceeding expectations.
And what is it in the interim that I'm trying to understand? I just want to make sure. What is it in the early language that gives us the flexibility to say we don't have to give this to her?
Based on the evaluation
Yes,
conducted pursuant to section 6, which is this.
correct.
And the performance of the council during the year. Did we have?
And the performance of the council?
Right, so
What is
if based upon its evaluation of Green's performance undertaken pursuant to section 6, in other words, the performance evaluations. The performance of the council during the year.
Yeah.
And such other factors and conditions, right? Wiggle room there, such other conditions, factors.
As the council deems relevant. And that can be, and that's really where my position is comparable positions in this community. Period. I mean, let me make something very, very clear. My vote, look, I knew how I was gonna vote here. I very well knew how I was gonna vote here. I know my position. I also know my position on, I know what my position is. I still think that I gave her 3 5s, 1 4 and 1 3. This is not coming from someone who doesn't believe that she is meeting the expectations that I have for the executive director. It is the other relevant factors for me.
So for you, what I'm hearing is the primary reason is because you think she's already overcompensated based on other positions.
I think she is. I think based on what I built into her contract as a member of the FRS, including her health benefits, I think that she is appropriately compensated. That's my feeling.
What's your opinion, Mr. Watts?
So I will overanalyze everything, and this could be every year she's with us, automatic $5,000.
Is that the case? It says after
Every
the first
evaluation.
year,
It does say after the first year.
the first year.
And the contract is renewed for additional years by adoption of a resolution of the governing council. So you would adopt a resolution at the next meeting or shortly thereafter. This says we hereby determine to continue the contract under the same or modified terms if you should wish, and seeker would agree to them. So you're not necessarily locked into the terms here. And the way I read this is that $5,000 is first year and not necessarily something you have to do every year. Now, that said, the 5,000, I think it was key to the discussion at that council meeting where she was basically hired But you'll note at the tail end of this section that this merit increase, in other words, the 5,000, is separate and apart from any other salary increase the council may award Green pursuant to section 6 or otherwise.
And that's above and beyond
Yes.
this, okay.
So it may be that, you know, if it wasn't 5 in the future year, it's something based on her struggle.
I will, you know, after we bring this in here to discussions, I will likely vote with the majority of what I think the thing is for the group. Initially, my gut would be like, from a person that works for the state, it would be highly strange to get a $5,000 raise in your first year. So I would like the range 0 to 5, that would give some wiggle, you know, give some flexibility or whatnot. I just think it's, you know, somebody in the first year to get that, they're doing well, but still has room for improvement, and is willing to improve. I would feel much comfortable in that second year, but I will eventually vote with the majority. Yeah.
I will make one request, and I hate to do this to the staff, but if y'all could please go back to that meeting. I just want to make sure we're very clear on what we promised her at that point in time, because I hear exactly what you're saying, and I remember walking away from that meeting thinking, you know, we capped her at the 120. But we told her, you perform, and we're sure, and I thought it was your words, Paul, that actually said,
Yeah.
I'm sure, you know, what the expectations of what we have of you, you will meet those expectations and you will get the 125. And I remember hearing that.
Yeah,
And
I
so-
didn't say you will get, but
But you're right.
you're right. And that was before I looked at the numbers of what, Terrence, are you a senior manager? Are you in the senior management, or you're a
Yes,
select
yes,
exec?
yeah.
So you're a select exec. Your compensation, just so you know, your benefits, a senior manager is, the retirement percentage is higher, all of that. When I looked at the final number, I was like, oh, she's, I think, appropriately compensated. A senior manager, just so you know, SMS, and that's what I asked, that they put her in, and I looked, and she definitely is higher than the selected exempt, which is higher than career service in terms of percentage of her salary going into retirement. So I do. I think that's the only difference. Again, I feel weird sort of taking the position I'm taking, because it's not to suggest I think the world of Zika, and I think she's doing a great job. And I think that we're doing well by her as well. And I compare others in similar positions in this community and in similar positions around the state. And I'd say, I think we're compensating her well.
I think I just arose to a decision. I will go ahead with the 5. I think I feel confident that what she's done so far, with the fact that we could, you know, the contract is up, you could reevaluate. I have no doubt, well, you never know, but I have no doubt, strong sense that it will continue. The positive that she's done and the work that she's done will continue, and so that's where I would land. And with that, without having that,
Yeah.
if we had that wiggle room, I'd say
This-
25.
Yeah.
You know,
I understand.
you know, some
Yeah.
wiggle room or something, but that's where.
That's where you are, okay.
Yeah.
So I wish we were all on the same page. I really do, because I want us all to go forward together. But I remember that meeting, and I remember, you know, us telling her the 120, I remember that. And I remember thinking, well, if you just perform, you know, and meet the expectations, then you'll get what you thought you were going to get. I remember that. And I didn't know her. I met her at that meeting. It was my first encounter with her. But I remember that conversation. So I do feel as if her expectation was, if I meet the performance, then I will be eligible for this $5,000. And I clearly feel as if she's met the expectation of what we laid out for her evaluation. She's met that expectation. Now, I don't know what other people are paid. I'm just gonna be honest with you, I don't know. But I know
The governor of
personally,
the state of Florida is paid $135,000.
well, I understand that.
And I just told you that the director of the Early Learning Coalition is paid $115,000.
Okay.
The Children's Home Society, the new one is not paid as well as Seco, but so that's.
I understand that, but we posted this position for $120,000.
No, you just said, I don't know, and I was
Oh,
just
okay, no,
sharing.
I understand that, right,
What
I mean,
others,
what they're
in mind,
making,
right.
sure, but we have it here in the contract, and we posted it at 120, and I think that, yeah, I feel as if she worked her butt off, and she clearly performed, yes, there's room for improvement, but I remember thinking when we walked out of that room, we basically promised her, you improve, and you can get the extra
Let me
amount.
ask you something.
Sure,
Were you expecting her to charge us for her mileage between meetings around town?
I was not,
Okay, well, she has.
okay,
I just, again, when I look at the full package, that's why I feel the way I feel. I am so happy that Sika Green is the executive director of the Children's Services Council of Leon County, and I support her being in that position. We advertised a position that the range was up to $125,000, and we hired somebody within $5,000 of the max.
right,
That's what we did. And that number was based on a board member's motion,
Correct.
not mine, another board member's, right? So when we hired her at 120,000. What we didn't advertise was the fact that what we would pay in her retirement, which is real money, is at a senior management level, a senior manager of a state agency. That is, if you're the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles Executive Director, if you're the head of FDLE, if you're a senior manager in state government, you retire at a very nice level. That's real money going into Sika's compensation package. It's certainly more than $5,000. So that's why I feel comfortable with her being where she is. Again, I'm used to I spend my own money less cautiously than I do others. And in this case, I believe that that when using my neighbor's money, I think we are compensating our executive director appropriately. Period. That's my position.
okay, and I respect that, and I honestly believe that we should take everybody's money serious, because our money's going into this too, right, yeah.
I know,
Honestly,
me
yeah.
saying that, it's not a suggestion that you or
Sure.
Mr. Watson differently.
Sure.
Like, you know,
I
something else.
understand, no, I do understand. So I do think we're still gonna disagree here, because I believe that, you know, she's met the expectations. We should give her the $5,000. But I do think that what we can do is we don't have to make a recommendation, and we can go to the full council, and we can say, here's where she landed with the evaluation. Here's what we said that, you know, we have in the contract, and let the board decide, let the council decide. And I think it definitely takes the pressure off of us, but that's gonna give everybody the opportunity to weigh in, and that's what the council's supposed to do anyway.
Yeah.
So are y'all opposed to doing that? You're not opposed? You're not opposed? Okay. So, Mr. Rowe, I think that's what we have decided since, so we're not gonna go forward with a recommendation, but we will ask you at the next meeting to review overall where she is. I do think that people should see the language for what we said and let them interpret that for what they think it should be. And then we'll go for a vote and then allow the council members to decide at that point. Yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Yes,
So
please.
sorry.
No worries.
Even if we were to go to a vote, you know, the way it reads, you know, what are you voting on? What are you know, if somebody were to, it's almost like, why do you even have to vote on this the way it's written?
I agree. I mean, that's my stance. I mean, I feel as if she's met the requirement. But, you know, that term, that's why I wanted him to define that opening, like what was not comfortable. And it's the line, and conditions as the council deems relevant is where I think Mr. Mitchell's basing his argument.
I will say, you know, for the next, it would be my opinion that, you know, for the next contract,
Yeah.
we probably have to
Black and white.
lay that out more,
Yeah.
even, you know, Forget
Yeah,
I think that again, for the next year's contract, I think that the executive committee should have the flexibility to make a determination of leave it exactly the same, $1,000, 2,500, 5,000, 10,000, a percentage.
but that's not what this
No,
contract says.
I am with you there,
Okay,
totally with you. That tightening up this contract, I think it is totally appropriate that the council itself can make a determination as to how to compensate its executive director, period.
And Mr. Mitchell, I wanted to comment too. So, and if there are things that are part of the process that bother you, like the billing for mileage, we should take a look at those
I just
things.
found that out, which is part of the reason for it to go 3 months without
Okay, the
appropriate accounting
Okay,
is troubling
Yeah.
to me,
okay,
right?
yeah.
So I just recently found
Found
something
that
that's
out,
out. Again, I would have taken the same position regardless.
I know.
And they don't bother me. There's nothing that bothers me. What bothers me is not knowing.
Right,
But again, I'm going to report to the council exactly how our taxpayers' dollars are being spent, plain and simple. Right now, I am not in the position to do that because for 3 months, despite asking several times for a one-on-one meeting with the accountant, I had not been given that. It has just been added to my calendar because I insisted when I talked to Sika on Monday. So I appreciate that. But it does, the information doesn't bother me. It's not knowing
Right,
that
right.
bothers me.
okay, and that's fair, but I just want to make sure if there are operational things that are spending dollars that we're not comfortable with as a whole, I want to make sure we look at that and be able to weigh in on those things.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me too.
okay.
And I'm not shocked.
Right,
And look, here's the greatest thing about being a volunteer member of this council. There are people who I have no doubt are thinking, go, yes, be me. That's not what I'm trying to be. Then there's people who are like, what a rear end he is. That's not really what I'm trying to be.
Right.
I am trying to be a voice at this table that says, stop, just for a second, look at how we are spending our neighbors' money. That's really more than anything, what this is about.
I totally appreciate that, I do. I just want to make sure we abide by what we said we were going to do. And if she did meet the expectations, then, and what's in the contract, I just want to make sure we follow that to the law. So I don't think anybody's disagreeing with
Right,
anything.
just meeting the expectations though alone does not require us to give her a pay increase. Make this clear. We have the ability to look at other things that we deem relevant, and that's what the contract says. So there isn't a mandate that we give it to her, but if we do give it to her, and this is to Mr. Watts' point, it has to be a minimum of $5,000.
Yes, and I think we all agree with that. It's the minimum, and then we can take a hard look at what that contract looks like for the next year.
Right.
So we're not having this exact same conversation
Right.
this time next year. I think it's a lesson learned.
And
Yes.
Councilmember Watts, you asked, why is a vote even necessary? The employment contract is for a term of 1 year, which can be renewed at the option of the council and green, subject to any modification that the parties agree to. So it's possible that some of this can be clarified through the approval of the agreement for the next term. Maybe clean up some of this language here so it's clear it's not a minimum of $5,000, it could be up to
Sure.
5,000, amount unspecified. Maybe
Which would be my
that's-
preference,
Yeah.
that we not put a specific number in it, and it's really at the discretion of the council, period.
I agree.
Um,
I agree. And I think that's what we'll have to take up for the next time. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that I am asking you to please be prepared to review this with the council at our next meeting. Please review what's here. I would ask that you please go back and listen to that, and I'm sorry, yeah, but I just want to make sure it's clear as to what was actually said at that meeting. And then we would take it to the board and lay it out and allow the council and allow everybody to weigh in as to whether or not we honor this, or it, well, not just honor it, but whether we give the $5,000, or if there are other things that are significant enough that the council does not think it merits the $5,000 increase.
Well, wait, so again, going back to the issue of what her compensation package was. And Zeke and I had this conversation where she was like, I did not realize just how good what you proposed was by making me a senior manager. So that to me is relevant,
Okay.
and that is a relevant factor.
And I think we should include an explanation of that, because I wasn't aware of all of the benefits that were included.
Yes, I think that's a good
Okay,
idea.
yeah,
I
So-
think there's a dollar amount to, or
Yes.
that can be
There's a
provided.
very specific dollar.
Can you help to prepare it? So
Yeah.
okay, that would be great. Would you work with Mr. Mitchell, please?
So the
Okay, all right.
CPA's got,
Okay.
well, that's,
Okay,
I have that meeting with him, so as soon as I, yes.
okay,
Yeah.
because I want it all laid out. I want us to be completely transparent and laid
As
out
to
and know exactly
what the full
package is,
compensation,
right?
and it isn't $120,000.
And that may help us make, help people understand what that value actually is.
I just
Okay.
want, can I just add too,
Yes.
she is allowed to claim, they are allowed to claim mileage. So I just wanna make, put that on, go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay. Where does somebody, so I just want to put it out there in case somebody's going to claim. But the way we have it in here, they are allowed to claim the mileage.
Right.
And the rate, I don't know what rate, I know it says based on the IRS rate, so, I don't know what the rate is that they've landed on, but they are allowed to claim that.
Okay,
So
okay.
they have to look.
good, so would, you know what, by the next meeting, I will have a sort of a full
Okay.
picture as to
All right.
exactly how the money's been spent. And precisely, I'll just say, Terrence, your office at DCF, if somebody called you to the Capitol for a meeting, would you charge mileage?
Okay, so you are allowed to claim.
I didn't say that. I
Would
just asked,
I?
would you? Have you ever?
So I'm not claiming mileage here,
Okay,
and I could.
yes.
But, but again, you are allowed to.
Yeah.
So it'd be hard to put that in there to say that's a
Usually
judge.
for a senior manager
Okay.
to, I truly, in 18 years of, again,
But
state
that's-
service.
Okay, I understand, but does that prevent her from getting a merit
No,
increase?
I just, when you look at someone's full package, I just, no, it doesn't. Where I land is she's appropriately compensated,
Okay.
period.
I mean, and because I heard your example, and like at my job, I'm allowed to bill for my cell phone. I don't, but if I did, I still want my increase at the end of the year, and so
Yeah,
I don't think
I
those
wasn't
kinds of
tying
things.
one to
should-
the other.
Okay, all right,
I believe that when I look at the body of work and I compare it to what others in this community are doing and how they're compensated, that our executive director is at a very, very nice level. And by the way, I'm glad. I'm absolutely glad. I'm not suggesting that we roll her back. I'm just suggesting that when I take all things into consideration, which is what this contract allows us to do, that she's well compensated and appropriately,
okay.
period. That's just how I feel.
I completely agree with you. I hear you. I
Well,
don't
right,
agree with you.
right.
Those are two different things, right? I hear you. Okay, so let's move forward. All right, so I think we have a game plan as to what we're gonna do at the next meeting, and be ready and prepared for that. And if you be prepared to lay out the full package, and I
Actually,
hate to do
I'm
all
not
of
gonna
this.
I'm gonna prepare the full package.
Okay,
Because I'm going to take a position that is probably different
Okay.
than
probably all 9
Sure.
others. I don't want to bias it, I'm just gonna say, here it is, that's it.
That's fine, so you'll have it written in the package, okay, all right, that's fine. That's fair enough, all right, thank you for that. All right, Mr.
Which
Rowe.
would fall, I also apologize.
Yeah, no,
Which
no.
would fall under, could fall, Christopher Rowe, under such other factors and conditions. Okay. There you go.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
and I think that's where
Okay.
we'll have to determine what those other factors and conditions are and weigh them and whether they justify for others to not include it or to include it.
In this instance, that his present, where he would present, that where his position would fall under that statement.
Correct,
And then we would just need to know for the next time that if we want to fine tune
correct.
various things in here.
Then we
related
can
to
do that,
then we
right.
can- Okay,
And that's something I would ask you to please, you know, if, as you present this and after we make this determination, then, and maybe that just comes back to our discussion, but when we go into the next year, the things that we are comfortable with, that we want to edit, we're ready and prepared to make those changes, or at least have that conversation. Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you all for the conversation, all right, I appreciate that, thank you. Okay, where are we on the agenda? Okay, so we are not moving forward with a recommendation, but we are gonna take that forward to the full council.
Madam Chair, could I just make one
Yes.
comment? I would like to move forward with the recommendation that we renew Ms. Green's contract and that we renew it with a finely tuned provision as it relates to her compensation package and the council's ability to provide her an increase at our discretion, that there's no, it's not built into a $5,000 minimum, it is whatever so that would be my,
So that's a different recommendation, though, right? Because the recommendation here is whether or not we're going to have a salary adjustment or a merit increase.
right, well,
Okay.
yeah, but technically what the council will be voting on is a renewal of a contract. And my motion is that we recommend a renewal of the contract with a discussion as to what the compensation package should look like.
Okay,
And that on a going forward basis, that contract be renewed by reviewed by Mr. Rowe to reflect, to give the council more flexibility as it relates to an increase in her pay. With no minimum, it can be $0, it can be $10,000. Like, it gives the council the full flexibility.
so I'm still hearing two different recommendations, though. I think we need one recommendation as to whether or not she's gonna get an increase or not. I think that's the first recommendation. And then the second recommendation is to recommend whether we renew her contract and what the modifications of that contract will be, which I'm hearing is your second, as your recommendation.
Yeah, my recommendation is that we renew the contract
Right.
and we renew it with some modifications
I
that
agree.
give flexibility to the council.
Okay,
And leave it to the full council to make a determination on what sort of a compensation package should be
in the new
in
contract.
the new contract.
Okay, Mr. Watts, does that work for you?
yes.
Okay, I don't think we need to vote on that, right? Okay, all right, so thank you, all right, thanks for the clarification. All right, at this point, it is time for public comment. Ms. Clay, do we have any public comments?
There's no.
No public comments, okay, all right. So what we are going to do is we're basically making two recommendations. The first recommendation is that we have decided that we're going to take it to the full council for them to make a decision as to whether or not she is eligible for the $5,000 increase or not. That's the first one. And then the second recommendation will be that we are recommending that we increase her contract with the expectations that we can modify this contract and have a discussion with the council as to how that's gonna be modified to qualify her for an increase next year. Okay? All right,
I'm so sorry, one more thing.
go ahead, please.
So, Mr. Rowe, will this be able to now be emailed to the full council before that next meeting?
It's a public record. It was a public record as soon as you returned it to me.
Okay.
Any member of the public could have asked for it, including members of the council. Yeah, I think I'll be able to circulate that to the full council before the meeting as part of the agenda package.
I think that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
good to review.
Question?
You know, I was just trying to figure out what's the difference between them and us, but it's okay. It's okay. As long as you're able to include it, I think
It's
it'll be
been
fine.
released in a public meeting.
Setting already,
It's
okay.
fully available to the public. As with all of the meeting records, they are posted to the
It's
CSC
fine,
website.
okay, all right. So it's already posted, okay.
Okay.
Not already, but.
But it will
will
be, okay, yeah, fair enough, okay, thank you. Okay, when is our next meeting day? Ms. Clay, Ms. Snyder, do either one of you know? Is that to be determined?
It is to be-
Okay, all right.
it is determined.
That's to be determined, all right, so, we will, do that. Now, okay, before we move forward, I need to ask a question. I was supposed to have a conversation with Ms. Green to review what we decided at this meeting today. We didn't decide. I mean, we don't have a declarative, well,
But Dr. Glenn, I think we were leading it to your hands to talk to her about the evaluations. And if there was a needs improvement, you have to be, you had the
have
top
that
job.
conversation, right?
I think that sitting down with Sika and going through this, saying, hey, Sika, everything looks pretty good. You know, you got, in some categories, you got all fives. There's a few that you got fours and 2 3s in the fiscal side of it. It looks like you're doing a pretty good job. Keep up the good work.
Which I could do. I do know that conversation's gonna turn to, so how does that inform my compensation? And then my response would be, that decision has not been made yet at the council.
This is a
I know,
public
but
meeting, so I mean, I think you can, look, it's. Have you seen the council members? I think Ms. Green has a pretty good feel as
to
to,
what this is,
yeah.
but
And I mean, I certainly have zero problem, clearly, with my position being public. I don't, and I don't think Sika will say, he hates me. That's what this is about. She knows how I feel about her and her abilities, so that's not what this is about. So I think you can have that conversation with her.
I can't, I just don't think it'll be a complete conversation. I mean, I know that she's gonna want more information. I'm not saying I won't do it, I'm happy to do it, it's just,
But even if, let's say all 3 of us said she deserves a $5,000 raise,
if
you
somebody
having that
doesn't have-
conversation
yeah.
doesn't do anything. I think you have a conversation with her and you talk about what we talked about. The most important thing, though, for Sika to understand is this.
Right.
Clearly, she's on the right track. Don't stop doing a good job. That, to me, is, I knew you weren't going to have a hard time. There is gonna come a time when some chair,
Yeah.
10 years from
Like
now,
somebody-
has a hard time
Right.
because Sika's, moved on.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it isn't you.
I know, and I'm very grateful for that, I really am. And it's just honestly, I honestly thought there would be another element to that conversation. You know, when we discussed it at the last meeting, and I thought, okay, we're gonna go over the reviews, and we would have a recommendation, and even though we may say, we're gonna take this to the council, that finality is not there, which is fine. I just have to wrap my mind around it.
In a weird sort of way, even though we've left it a little bit open, there's 3 of us here. You know how you and Mr. Watts are voting, so you kind of have what the recommendation.
We only have 3 votes, I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
And that would have been the point no matter what. So I think you as chair, I think you're the right person, which is why I made the motion that you meet with her one-on-one and speak for the executive committee, all of whom seem very pleased with her performance. And she has not one council member who thinks she needs improvement in any area. Those are all good signs.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
It's a short meeting.
It is a short meeting, and and it'll be a decent one. I'm just wrapping my mind around the fact that it's not gonna be as inclusive as I thought it was going to be, and so I've come to that realization. No worries, thank you. Any comments on that, Mr. Watts?
You would be prepared in an instance, let's just say the vote went a different way, right?
Mhm.
That would be the end of it, or something else would need to occur?
Yeah, but I do plan to meet with her before that meeting.
Yeah, I just
So
mean, yeah,
she's
I just mean,
comfortable.
I'm just jumping ahead to at the actual council meeting, you know. Let's say you didn't have enough votes to give the raise, that would be kosher, that would be fine, or?
She would have to agree to a new contract that included the compensation package exactly as it is.
In my head just is trying to figure out the whole, just the work, you know.
Any parties are free to enter into a contract and to amend that contract to provide different details.
Mhm.
Circumstances change, we're gonna adopt an amendment. If the council were to determine that the merit increase were not warranted, it could do so, but she's free to leave the contract.
At that time,
Yeah,
okay,
she is, because it's just a one-year contract, and
Right, now, whether or not she feels that that is counter to the terms of her contract, even if she leaves, she could still say, you still owe me that 5, and these scores prove it. I'm going to enforce my rights under this contract. If she were of a mind to. If she were of a mind to.
got it.
I don't know how that would shake out in a court of law. I advise the board, not staff members, generally on things like that. That would be up to SECA to independently analyze. My role would be to advise you guys, the full city board, what her likelihood of success in prevailing on something like that would be. And my thought is, notwithstanding the wiggle room in the merit increase section, has she met performance expectations?
she has.
The scores say she does. I mean, it's not 2.9 averages, it's closer to 5 averages. And you say that she didn't, you know, if that sort of occurrence were to unfold, obviously she's no longer with us, right? It'd be difficult for her to proceed in her position if she's involved in a legal action to try and recoup compensation. And I haven't heard anything that leads me to think we're going anywhere near that. We're talking about pure hypotheticals, right? But I think that the board probably could make some sort of determination that, you know what, we based on other factors and conditions, we don't think the 5,000 is warranted. And then it's up to her to determine, well, do I disagree with that? What is my grounds for disagreeing? If I'm her, I reach for this, first and foremost. And then am I so agreed that I'm no longer interested in continuing? And then the board is left with having to go through the hiring process to find somebody new.
Okay, I'm good now, I'm clear, I got it. I just have
You
to
good, you want to
go all the way
hear it
through
out?
and just see what that other side would, so, okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay, all right, sounds good. All right, so our next meeting date is to be determined, so of course the agenda is to be determined, with that next meeting.
I would like to say,
Please.
since we'll be in our office space, we can have the executive committee can have a standing meeting.
Okay,
And when you all do not need to meet, I can perfectly cancel that meeting. So I would like you all to decide now on what day and time is good for you all. And I'll go ahead and get it on the calendar.
okay, so you're asking for a date and time, okay. So, let me let everybody know that the Program Services Committee will meet the second Thursday of every month, which is the Thursday right before our general council meeting. So that date is taken already. So we need a date for the executive council committee to have a date and time. So would you all like to meet the week before the general council meetings or 2 weeks before? What's your preference? I'm fine either way.
I think a week before is a good, if it works for me.
Okay.
That's fine.
And Thursday's taken. Wednesday, I'm asking us not to do because that's a church night. I'm trying. So can we do a Monday or a Tuesday the week before?
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, so my life gets a little busy, it's just,
Yeah.
so you kind of throw them on there and
Let's see what we're saying.
I haven't missed a single meeting, so
Okay.
I am batting 1,000, which just saying that means I'm gonna miss the
No,
next
no,
one.
you're not, you're not.
So, yeah,
You're good. Either one, either day works.
it doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
It's kind of like throw it on and I'll be there if it works.
Monday or Tuesday, which do you prefer?
Let's do Monday.
Monday, all right. So the Monday, which will be the second Monday of the month, the week before the council meeting, at our new location at 5 p.m.?
That's
Five? Works, okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Any committee member comments? Ms. Watts?
Thank you for the great discussion. I really enjoyed it. So, and thank you, Mr. Rowe. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mitchell? None, okay. Well, guys, what time is it? It is 6:18 and our meeting is now adjourned. Thank y'all so very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. I so appreciate you. Thank you very much. All right, thank you.
Dina,
Wait, let me, I'm stop slide.
I have here partially my print job, partially your print, or all of your print job, but I will now go through